Hey everybody, this is Janan from Black Metal Artists, and I'm here today with Rob from Wyrmtongue. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for joining me here today.
thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So let's start off with your most recent single release that you just released here in 2025, Sword of the Cursed Things. Can you tell us about some of the legends you're pulling from in the song?
Yeah, so with this song, I kind of took the concept of um of the sword, which in a lot of Nordic sagas, they've um they've given reference to these swords that kind of held their own personalities and energies in them. There's always a backstory of intent being in the sword in its forging. There's always some type of backstory that kind of mirrors the ending of the story, where it's like the sword itself is self-prophesizing to where it's cursed, it's either restless or it has a bloodthirst, but it's also being honed by a king or a warrior who wants to gain some type of renown. And he goes through this like epic saga, and in the end he himself like ends up like falling by the sword or becoming a very restless spirit, in his whole story. So I kind of feel like that that story, or at least with swords, they do harbor this type of energy to them, some type of intent, and it's very resemblant of the person that they end up becoming in the end of it, in the end of their story.
That's awesome. That's actually pretty amazing. I noticed obviously you have a lot of Norse mythology behind your songs. What is that these themes mean for you? What's your correlation and representation with them, like how it is with this song?
Um, Pretty much, I would say that a lot with the Norse myths, that they do have this way of interpreting the world as being more mystical and holding more true to it. I feel like with this age, we're just kind of being thrown in a box, and our perception of nature and the earth and our own realities are just kind of thrown into its own little like segregated box. But I feel like with these old myths, they kind of hold more of a deeper truth to not only like our own nature, but also like our relationship with the earth, and the world around us. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like by creating songs about the Norse myths, that pretty much when you try to invoke these old stories, it kind of also invokes that old spirit of the stories, and it kind of like brings that spirit and truth back to life for a minute. So I try to incorporate that idea for the most part. I'll find a story that I'll really like, but I have to really resonate with it before I do anything with it, and that's mainly why it takes a while for me to write something, and that's kind of why I'm just doing singles right now. I have to really resonate with the concept before I do anything with it. So,
That absolutely makes so much sense. And that kind of leads me into like wondering also like from your previous single from 2024, what was behind that one as well, since there's so much lore and depth. I'm curious.
oh, that one. So, yeah, that was actually, yeah, that was a whole experience. Um, so that song, Bones of the Forever Unconquered, was about pretty much how the mountains are the bones of slain giants. And pretty much like giants themselves in the stories and sagas, they're pretty much like described as these chaotic, unchained beings of cosmic energy that just are rampant. And the Norse sagas, they're always seen as the culprit or the enemy of the story, and they try to like, they try to always, the gods are always trying to attain some type of something from like wisdom or secrets. um, but for the most part, the whole story behind that was pretty much like trying to invoke half of it was trying to tell the story about like how the earth came from a chaotic beginning, and how the world around us, it's all chaos, and how it was pretty much like order was brought into the world. um and the other half of it was kind of an incantation for the most part. I was trying to invoke the spirit from the mountain. um that song I wrote when I actually half of my house actually got hit by a storm, and it took off half of my roof. And
Oh my
for a
God.
minute, I kind of just felt like in the middle of that, I was like caught in the chaos of that. And I felt so helpless, and just like the wind and the lightning all going off. There was just like this like chaotic force that was just like in control. And at that point, you kind of let go, but you
Yeah.
also notice like this entire like powerful energy where it's just like, like you're not in control. There's other forces at will. And that's kind of when I jumped into this, like the whole story of like force, like spirits of chaos. And of course, like the Jotun or the giants, they're always talked about as these rampant gods. I was like, yeah, they were kind of the ones who took off my roof. Like that's what it kind of feels like, because I felt very helpless at that at that
You
point.
had a very personal connection in that moment with that creation. That makes it even more intense, absolutely, because
Yeah.
you're living an experience that's fueling that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also kind of part of the next question too. Like, is this more about like personal expression or towards telling it like the story and the legends?
um I would say it's a little bit of both. um yeah, I would definitely say it's a little bit of both. um I love stories that try to pull a grain of truth, from an old
Yeah.
past where perception was a little bit more deeper about life and the world around us. Um, and also, it's also really the way that they spoke about the stories is very poetic, and I'm inspired from the way that stories are pretty much written. How they're written and how poetic they get. So
Yeah.
I not only is it my interest, but like I also like really do try to kind of like, get entwined with that type of like mentality and perception of the world itself. Cause I feel like there's an old truth to the reality that we live in. I just feel like it hasn't been tapped into because maybe there's other forces at will that want to take that away from us. But I feel like the more that you write about it and the more that you try to invoke that spirit, um, the more that you actually see truth in the world and how much like old magic there really is in the world. And I kind of feel like not only that, but like it also brings people together. Like, like
Yeah.
it does like invoke this like this type of truth where it does touches people. And even this project alone, I felt like I've met a lot of really interesting, like really awesome people just from me coming out and sharing music on my perception on stories and lore. Like I've met some really awesome people that I don't think I would have met if I never like took that chance to like try to share my perception of and my
That,
interpretation.
yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. That's perfect. Would you also say then that kind of links to what the message is that you want to get out into the world, like the reconnection and kind of going back to the roots?
Yeah, I definitely would. I feel like it's important to look back and try to retouch on old roots and old stories and the perception of how people used to see the world, because I feel like our connection with the world was a lot more different than it was today. Even
Absolutely.
today, like our relationship with other human beings, it's so severed. But I think it all started when we severed our connection with the earth itself, and that's where a lot of our history comes from. So
Yeah. Can't say you're wrong there. Can't not say you're wrong there. So as a one man band, as a one man project, Where do you see the next steps going for you in 2026 or even, the end of 2025 here?
Right now, so right now with Wyrmtongue, I'm trying to just focus on writing more music. I've written two singles already with like two instrumentals. Um, this is pretty much like the early stages of the project, like the very, very early stages of it. I've never stepped in front of a mic before. I've never really messed around with like sampling or recording. So this is all just kind of taking place like after a year of just like diving into like how to do this, how to do that, and just kind of having fun with it. So right now I'm just kind of focused on writing more music. I want to put out some actual like physical material. So that's in the works right
Awesome.
now. And for the most part, just like, you know, connection as well. If I can like connect with other people, musicians, it'd be really cool to like, find my own tribe and this whole journey.
Absolutely.
So that's
Yeah, hell yeah.
just like I'm just, filling it out for the most part, but whatever comes, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. So you are based in Los Angeles, California. How would you say the black metal scene is and the reception is to your music locally? Do you feel like there's been a lot of good traction when you put your singles out?
Yeah, I would say so. Uh, for the most part, I would say for the people that I've shared it with, I've had like really, really good encouragement for the most part to write more. They want to hear more, and it's been for the most part positive. I can't really say that I'm too entwined with the black metal scene of LA. Um, I'm very familiar with it, but like I'm not too entwined with it. It
Absolutely.
took me a while to actually even like come out and be like, like, hey, listen to my single, dude. So
I get that.
it's like the early stages of it, but I've had very, very positive feedback for the most part, and I do feel more encouraged to write more. Because at first
That's great.
you get a little discouraging at first. You're like, oh, how do I find myself in this kind of scene or whatever? But sometimes you just have to like let go. Just like, dude, like I just speak from the heart and just try to write something that you like, and you'll find your own people. So I'm just, I'm working on it. People come around, they like it.
Exactly.
They can pick up a sticker or whatever.
No, exactly. Like that's how everyone starts basically. So that's amazing. I'm really glad that you are doing it and putting yourself out there. What would you say, obviously for the future, but what would you say would be your dream lineup if you were to play a show with any bands you could? What would your dream lineup be?
Ooh, dream lineup, man. Um, well, I feel like Watain would have to definitely be a headliner. They have like a very ritualistic presentation of their music, and
Yeah.
I feel like if I ever had to do a show, um, which I mean, I'm shy as hell, but I feel like if I had like flamethrowers going off and like incense, and skulls, and everything, yeah, it'd probably be like Watain. Probably, like
Nice.
I'd be like totally down to like open up for Watain, but like probably some bands like also be very, you know, um theatrical with their sets. I'd kind of feel like that'd be really great. I
Yeah,
kind of feel like
absolutely.
Bathory and Dissection are kind of out of the question, but yeah, I'm like, all right, second best, I'm cool with opening for. That'd be cool.
That would definitely be peak level. That would be amazing, absolutely. If you were to travel anywhere, what countries or like areas would you want to travel to?
Mm. I'm all for like, doing anything outside of LA for the most part. States, I'd love to travel. But also like hell, of course I feel like it'd be fitting for like Norway, Sweden, of course, somewhere in Scandinavia. I feel like that'd be kind of fitting.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure.
England, that'd be cool. Anywhere in Scotland or Dublin, anywhere like that. Pretty much anywhere outside of LA, I'd be totally down to check out. Um,
That would be awesome. Well, if you ever come out to New York, I would definitely love to see you perform a show out here sometime. But thank you so much for joining me today and answering all our questions.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.